welcome to the next episode of DDR, a podcast all about your favorite Drow, Drizzt Do'Urden. Did you think I forgot his name there, Jeffrey?
For a second, I was going to throw in another Drow real fast just to mess with you, but I was like, and I just took too long. I lost the moment.
My name is Justin, and in this episode, we'll be diving deep into Chapter 21 of Homeland, titled, May It Please the Goddess, discussing all of our favorite plot points, characters, and more.
Hello, I'm Jeffrey. We are big fans of the D&D tabletop game, so we're going to look at parts of this chapter and, how they relate to the current 5th edition of the game. We look at a variety of stuff, like monsters, classes, characters, weapons, spells, and more, while diving a little bit beyond the page to show you how they tie together.
Following along with the show is easy. Just grab a copy of the book, read the next chapter, and tune in every week. But remember, we want to hear your thoughts too, so you can share those with us at Drizzt Done Right at gmail.com.
Or, better yet, we do have the Discord channel. Have you ever wanted a place where you could go and be yourself? Oh, we sure have the right spot for you. There's a link in the episode description of this podcast that is an invitation to the Discord channel. You click that. It's kind of like a handshake. Come on in, be part of our Dim Light Squad as we continue the discussion beyond the show. Just last week we were talking with Scott in the general discussion about water trolls from a previous episode. He was explaining that in the earlier version of D&D, if a troll was cut into pieces, then each piece would grow into a whole new troll.
Right. Well, that was an extension of what we were talking about on the podcast before.
That's what I mean.
And yeah. And so we brought that up and he just provided some insight for us and yeah.
No, I found it was really cool because how terrifying would that be to think about that you go in there, with your, let's say you've got a cool little battle axe like Wolfgar the Barbarian, right? Just random name, just throwing it out there. And you come in there.
That's a good name.
Yeah, it sounds like it works. And you just chop that thing in half. You cleave it in twain. One of my favorite ways to say that. And you've got this
dead,
ugly
right? It's gone.
Right. It's just one eye from each side looking at you, and then suddenly they focus. Suddenly each half just becomes a troll. Like, no, sir. He was also then brought up, I guess they had used an example on a previous podcast, perhaps it was Critical Role or one of those style D&D podcasts, where they talked about feeding a troll or a water troll into a wood chipper.
Yeah. Well, that would kill it.
No,
right?
if every small piece came back, I imagine that what would ensue is something straight out of some kind of demented Fantasia, where the brooms just kept coming.
Right.
If this sounds like the kind of thing that tickles your fancy, just click the link, join that discussion, come look at our artwork, click the link for the creature feature. We've got a bunch of stuff just, waiting to keep you entertained. When you walk in and you interact, you might actually just find yourself becoming a part of the show.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Justin, what have you been up to, my friend?
Oh, well, for our listeners out there, we are recording at 11 p.m. That is 11 at night.
Yes, not in the morning.
I am on a night shift schedule, and it's my first time doing it. And
right, if we had copyrights, we could cue up that Guns N' Roses train where it's like, I'm on the night train. But we do not. So, we're just going to skip past that.
Yeah. Just go search that up yourself and play that at the same time. No, it's been going well. It's I've been able to adapt to it pretty easily, so I'm happy. It's nice, and I'm able to drink coffee. I had a nice big mug of coffee right before we started recording here, so I'm a little jittery.
All right, sometimes the little jittery may also be just energy that you can diffuse into the podcast, bringing it hard, buddy.
That's the goal. That's the goal. How have you been, Jeffrey?
I've been good. It's kind of hanging in there, keeping the same old stuff. Not a whole lot changing, but just enjoying my days, man. The weather's been kind of nice. Once I got through the rainy part of the week, felt like we were in monsoon weather for a while. For those of you,
it felt like it.
Who are looking, we are on the eastern coast of the United States, so we got a lot of rain previous week or so. But it feels like we're coming out of it. I got the flowers. Some of them are still surviving, hanging in there tight.
Ooh. Yeah, I haven't done any yard work at all.
Yeah,
A lot I gotta do.
been doing a little bit of stuff around the house. We put up another couple of set of shelves, and been, basically trying to unpack my cabinets, give myself a little bit more space, instead of having everything on
Nice.
top of each other. So just doing little stuff like that, and it feels real nice, having my own place, having my own house, and the stuff. When you upgrade it, it's yours, and there's just something to be said
Yeah.
for
Yep.
all the mundane tasks you normally would go through, but this time they're yours and they benefit you. So it's nice. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. And especially when it's a house that you're like, I'm here for a while.
Yeah.
Let's make this mine. Like,
Yeah, I am not a flipper for those of you guys who are listening. There's no chance that what I'm going to do is go in there, buy a low sell property, flip it around 3 years, go get another one.
Right.
It's not my style.
yeah. Yep. No, our first house, I was just kind of like, I don't really want to put too much work into this because this is temporary, Like,
Yeah.
this is not the house we're planning on staying in. And then it was just like, once we moved into the house that we're planning on staying in for a long time, it's like, okay, let's get some stuff done.
Right?
Let's make this our own. And
It's always fun to take a little bit of pride in it too. Like, I don't know about you, but I know, like, when I cut the grass, man, as a kid, I used to hate that. Like, oh, just another chore, huh? But now it's like I cut it and I'm like, man, it's kind of cool. Like, that's my yard.
it's like, get those lines straight.
Right? Got the ruler out, making sure I do the crisscross. No, none of that. I just make sure the grass is not at the level that gets me fined by the county. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't have to step on my tippy toes to see over the grass, and we're okay.
We've got some neighbors, but you know what? That's on them, not me. I keep my stuff looking, not too shabby.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump in to episode 21 here, Jeffrey. We'll start things off here with the Drizzt. The Drizzt, it's the part of the show where we take a look at this week's chapter and give you, the listeners, the Drizzt of it. Chapter 21 starts off with a meeting between Matron Malice and Dinan, along with his three sisters.
Do you remember the names off the top of your head? Go.
Briza, Vierna, and
Oh, come on. Starts with an M.
Maya.
Yes. She's the one we hear very little about most of the time. Way to go.
I know, right? Well, that's why it's like Briza, Vierna, no problem. But
It never occurred to me until you started reading that part there, and I was like, wait a minute. If I had to name all three of them, could I do that in a split second? Let's see if you can.
which out of those three names, I never had a student named Briza or Vierna, but I did have a student named Maya. And so shout out to Maya if you're listening. Let's see. So Malice is anxious to hear how the surface raid went. Dinan delivers only good news to Matron Malice. There were no Drow casualties. Dinan himself killed 5 female elves, and Drizzt killed 1 female child.
Seems like maybe his score's a little low.
Matron Malice is just kind of like, only 1? And Dinan provides some clarity. It's like, well, he would have had 2, but as we know, another Drow stole one of...
I like the air quotes. I do. For those of you not watching yet listening, Justin had air quotes.
Yeah, so that 1 kill was stolen from him, right? So Malice was quite happy with this report, proclaiming that Lolth will look upon House Do'Urden with favor.
Excellent.
Zach. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's always a good thing, right? Favor. It's
Oh,
good.
okay. Yeah. Zaknafane, however, was not sharing similar emotions. Zach, being Zach, again, gets lost in his own memories,
I'm
remembering
totally
the times. So he goes back, he starts reminiscing of the times when he had a chance to kill Drizzt. How many times? How many times did he have a chance to kill Drizzt? So many. Perhaps if he would have had... sorry, it's the caffeine. Perhaps if he would have killed Drizzt, this elf child that Drizzt, again, killed, would still be alive. Right, Zach.
I mean, technically they are still alive, though. So.
Well, but I mean, so Zach's, like,
Zach is
Zach
brooding.
thinking,
He's a very moody person.
but
We'll
he's
get into
thinking
that.
like,
But Zach is a very brooding, moody person.
But he's thinking like, okay, like if Drizzt wasn't there, the child would have lived. It's like, no, one of the other Drow would have killed that child either way.
That
like,
savage pack of hyenas was ripping apart everything in front of its path as fast as possible. Like if Drizzt was not there, it would not have mattered. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so like, and Zach doesn't know that Drizzt didn't actually kill the child.
Maybe the elves would have had a fighting chance.
Without Drizzt there.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't
Drizzt
because they
killed
got
the
slaughtered.
child.
You know what I mean? But in Zach's head, maybe they would have had some type of a fighting chance. Because Drizzt is far away,
I gotcha.
a superior Drow warrior. There would have been no... You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's a stretch.
No,
it's a stretch.
I see ya. All right, we're going to pan our camera to the left toward House Honnête, where Matron Sinife is meeting with Massage in Alton's room. But Alton, not invited. He gets kicked out
from his own room.
From his own room. He awkwardly shuffles off scene, makes his way out of the room, kind of confused. Is like, this is my room,
right?
But
like
anyway.
If you didn't want to meet with me, you could have met somewhere else in any other room. No, sure, take mine. Never. You know he is grumbling under. He is that kind of guy who is always grumbling under his breath. You know, just a little too loudly too. Like, you know, just enough to passive aggressively let you know he is upset.
Yep. So Alton makes his way out of the room, and as soon as the door shuts behind him, Matron Sinife turns around toward Massage with a huge grin on her face. House Do'Urden has fallen out of Lul's favor. Sinife doesn't know why, but she claims that she heard this through one of Lul's handmaidens.
Could you say this with the theme song of Heard It Through the Grapevine, with the name of what you're about to do?
Man, I'm not going to try singing on here.
Where she says, man, she heard it from a y'all. That's the best I got. The best I got, guys. Sorry.
That was a lot better than I would do. Yeah, so... I mean, handmaid, it doesn't say specifically in the chapter, but it's like handmaidens. That's a Yachlal, right? And I made a point to pull out my monster manual and read about them, and yeah, it's Yachlals. So
we got to put them in the creature feature because when you say it, they since we took the deep dive in it when we covered them, they are terrifying.
Yeah, we should totally put those in. So Matron Sinife gave orders to Massage to kill Drizzt and Dinan if needed. I don't think it was laid out explicitly in the chapter, but I assume it's to start this assault on House Do'Urden. Basically like, hey, take Drizzt out, and that'll even the odds, the house a lot easier, right? So Massage gladly accepts the orders, hoping that he would also have the opportunity to take out Dinan, not just Drizzt. He really wants to take out both of them, and not to dinner.
No. Unless there was poison involved.
Then we shift back to House Do'Urden. There's a lot of scene changes in this chapter.
It is. And it's a very entertaining chapter to me, though. I liked it.
Oh, it is, totally. So, yeah, we're back at House Do'Urden, and Drizzt is walking through the halls, and he seems to be haunted by the memories from the surface raid. The memories seem to take physical form around him. These visions of the child that he saved, along with the child's mother getting stabbed through the chest. Like, he tried to keep his eyes on the floor as he's walking through the corridors in House Do'Urden, just trying not to pay attention to these visions. And eventually he bumps into Zaknafein.
This is like classic shock, right? Trauma.
Totally.
Like the PTSD, he is seeing hallucinations, he is reliving vivid memories, he is hearing sounds in his head over and over again. And it is, I mean, it's just, you get such a different Drizzt right here, because you've always seen Drizzt calm, cool, and collected, ready to spring into action without ever being willing to sacrifice his morals or any of it. And this is the first time you really see him rattled to the core.
He's breaking a little bit. He's cracking a little bit there. Yeah. And we'll definitely be talking about that later. So he bumps into Zaknafein, the weapons master, welcomed Drizzt home, but he didn't really sound so sincere about it.
Yeah, I love this part. Go ahead.
Drizzt informed Zach that he's going on patrol again on the next day, tomorrow, and the patrol was going to last 10 days, and then he would be returning home again. And Zach is just like, hey, do you want to spar again? Just like old times? I'll meet you in the gym. And Drizzt accepts, but in his head, he's like, that's not gonna, like, we're never gonna be sparring like the old days. It's not gonna be the same. And so he doesn't have intentions of sparring with Zach. He starts to have intentions of, I mean, he's gonna kill Zach. He wants to kill Zach.
Oh.
And
I thought he doesn't want to take him out to dinner?
I guess not. I guess not. And so, like, why? And then on top of this, Zach wants to kill Drizzt, and like still.
Yeah,
it's
more than just a little.
Guys, just like talk to each other. A little communication could go a long way here. Like, Zach just thinks that Drizzt has fallen into Drow culture, just kind of accepted it, became an actual Drow warrior, and it's just like, no, he hasn't. Zach, just talk to him, and yeah. Anyway, I know we'll be talking about that later, so I'll.
No, I love it. I love
it. And then, hey, now that we talked about House Do'Urden again, let's go back over to House Annette and check in with Sinifé again.
Right, to the right. Scene swipe to the right. Go ahead.
Sinifé just told Alton that Massage is going to be killing Drizzt. To which Alton just begs her to change her mind. Alton wants to claim Drizzt's life as vengeance for House Devere. Sinifé reasons with Alton that he will have plenty of opportunity for vengeance through the killing of the females in House Do'Urden. And yeah,
it's weird, right? Because to Alton, there should be no reason it's got to be Drizzt. Because a Do'Urden is a Do'Urden is a Do'Urden to Alton.
Right, but I know, like, for years he's just kind of focused on Drizzt, so I kind of see where he's coming from. Like, that's just where he really wanted to strike on the house, and to suddenly get that pulled away from him. Like, I get that. That's kind of that's a number of years of focus that he's
obsession.
Yeah, his obsession that he's had with Drizzt, and to get that rug torn out from underneath him, it's just kind of like, but
he handles it gracefully.
He does. And hey, then we go back over to Drizzt again.
One
Drizzt
more scene cut. One more? Yeah, let's do another one. Scene swipe?
I think there's at least one more. So again, we're with Drizzt. He's reflecting on the fact that Zach takes part in this evil game of Drow life by killing Drow of other houses. Like, he's taking part of it. Like, he's part of it. He ponders how Matron Malice would feel if Drizzt would have died.
He's not just part of it, though. Like, he takes part in it, but he is exceptional at it.
Yeah.
He takes great pride in what he does. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not just...
That's true.
So right. It's like, he's not just a Drow. He is, like, essentially the archetype Drow, when you think about it. Like, he trains Drow to be Drow, to do Drow. Like...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he never really had that conversation with Drizzt. Guys, you need to talk. You need to talk.
I am shocked that two people who have spent their entire life swinging weapons at each other instead of talking are having a misunderstanding.
So, yeah, Drizzt starts to wonder, like, well, what would Malice think if I would have just died during the surface raid? And then he starts wondering about Lolth and whether or not she knows anything about what actually happened on the surface. So obviously this poor boy has a lot on his mind. And through all of these thoughts, Drizzt lands on one thing that he is able to control. Again, he is just very focused on killing Zach Nafane at this point. He doesn't want Zach Nafane to train any more Drow, and...
Well, they should have just adopted Alton Devere, because they all want to kill House Do'Urden Drow.
Yeah. And then, hey, we're not done. One more scene change.
Buddy, you're going to have to drag me
Nafane.
into the scene. I don't know if I can run that far. I'm exhausted.
There's so many. Zach Nafane is sharpening his sword with just like one thought going through his mind the whole time.
Hakuna Matata.
Like, he's gonna kill Drizzt.
Oh, I was close.
And so, again, just like, guys, have a conversation. Speak truthfully, and you would be best buds. You'd be frolicking around in the Underdark together.
Hanging out in the mushroom grove, just chilling, maybe holding lizard races as those little sticker feet get stuck to the wall.
Yeah. So, we kind of get left at this. It's not it's cliffhanger-ish, right? It's just both of these Drow like just plotting, just thinking all about killing each other, and so it's just like
it's like watching the dominoes start to tilt.
Yep.
But not fall yet. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is the Drizzt of it. Jeffrey, why don't you take them on into the dim light reel?
Me? All right. I'll no. You know what? I'm going to take them. I'll take them. All right. The dim light reel is where we cast darkness on our favorite parts of the chapter, and dim light all of our favorite characters, events, descriptions, and more. For me, this might come as a shocker, but I decided to go with Drizzt is going to kill Zach Nafane, or Zach Nafane is going to kill Drizzt. Somebody's killing somebody.
Someone's gonna kill someone.
This is turning into like a real will they or won't they kind of a relationship, right? Except instead of wondering if Ross and Rachel from Friends are finally going to get together, we keep seeing Zach Nafane wrestle with himself about whether or not he should kill Drizzt. However, I think this is the first time that we see Drizzt contemplating killing Zach Nafane.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, so naturally, right? I'd have figured let's throw some shadows on the topic and make it my dim light reel. The first glimpse that we get of Zach, he's in the shadows, off to the side, and he's listening as Dinan recounts the surface raid to Matron Malice. He's filled with dismay as he tries to shut out the words of the elder boy, but he's held in their grip. Finding out that Drizzt has slain a child is the most disappointing evil he had ever encountered in Menzo Berenzon. So, Justin, do you think that Zach Nafane is being just a touch melodramatic at the moment?
I feel like Zach is always melodramatic, Jeffrey.
I mean, for what we've seen in Menzo Berenzon, it's filled with all types of evil, and I feel like maybe, just maybe, Zach is kind of caught up in his feelings just a little bit here.
I think so. We should have kept a tally, and if anyone knows, come on to the Discord and let us know how many chapters ended with Zach Nafane looking off the balcony over Menzo Berenzon, very melancholy, thinking about how he should have killed Drizzt. How many times?
Right?
It's been a lot.
I would venture to say this is our 21st chapter. If you had to do an over-under, that'd be 11, halfway, right? Over-under on the chapters with which Zach hopes Drizzt dies.
Probably.
It's got to be close to half.
It's got to be.
So we see Zach Nafane leave the audience hall, and he's like nervously rubbing the hilt of his sword, remembering the time that he had deceived Drizzt with the light bomb. Drizzt had been defenseless and beaten, and Zach is focusing on the fact that he could have kept Drizzt from killing this child, the small elf, from having to go through all of the pain that they will surely follow him as it's followed Zach Nafane for his entire life. And really, I feel like he's projecting his own pain, right? It's his own insecurities here because he sees that Drizzt has cast a single accusatory look and then turns down a side passage. So Zach immediately thinks to himself, so it has come to this. The youngest warrior of House Do'Urden, so full of the hate that embodies our race, has learned to despise me for what I am. So, in this moment again, he's struck with the memory of holding Drizzt's life in the balance of his sword, as it was held against his throat during a moment training in the gym. Here I find it interesting that he thinks he wasn't sure if it would have been more merciful for him or for Drizzt. Zagnafane hasn't even spoken a word to Drizzt, but he thinks that he's got the young Drow's mindset all figured out to the point that he's running the narrative over and over in his head and convinced that he could not be wrong.
Right.
I feel like we've all done this. It's like if you've had a fight with a friend in school and you enter the lunchroom and you see them sitting over at a table. You make eye contact, they giggle to their friends, and suddenly you're convinced they're laughing at you.
Yep.
That they're making fun of you. Not only that, you know what? Maybe you should go over there and maybe I'm wrong.
No, I feel like that's something that a lot of people have gotten. Yeah.
It's just so easy to get caught up in the lack of facts. Like when you said earlier, if they just talk it out, they would be forced to confront the other's truth, right? So when they let out what it is that's bothering them, the other one would have to be like, oh, well, you know what? Just that it bothers you means that you can't be guilty of what I think you are. Mm-hmm. But instead of actually having that conversation or facing any of those truths, they're stuck in their own echo chamber where, oh, it's got to be this. Why does it have to be that? Because I said it's that. Yeah. You said it's that. Wait. And he's just talking to himself. And so he's like reaffirming everything that he thinks is wrong.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of what it feels like while we're reading Zach's inner monologue here. Mm-hmm. Later in the chapter, they meet as Drizzt is dealing with some stuff. That's how I just easily gloss over all the stuff that you had mentioned earlier. You're like, that just
awesome.
Dealing with some stuff.
Yeah, obviously.
But Zach walks up obliviously and says, "You're home," keeping his face placid while his emotions are a raging tempest.
Yeah.
And Drizzt, he's also trying to keep a poker face, but his rage is boiling to the rim, and they make small talk as if they're friends. Doesn't seem to notice that the other Drow is being less than genuine. So they're caught up in this back and forth, and Zach reaches out, slaps Drizzt on the shoulder, partially to test reflexes. Drizzt just accepts it. Unsure where it's really going, Zach says, "Hey, maybe we could just hit the gym." And this is where we see earlier, like you had pointed out, Drizzt he just wants to scream because he knows it's impossible. There's just no way. Things will never be like they were.
Right.
But that's not what he says.
But that's how bros settle fights, though. They go to the gym. They pump a few out.
Right? There's probably several of our listeners right now getting their swole on who are like, they're just, instead of having a nice dialogue, they're crushing plates, staying swole. But instead Drizzt is like, I'd enjoy that. And they're continuing this back and forth. And he inside is wondering how much satisfaction he would get from cutting Zagnafane down.
Right.
He realized the truth of his people. He could not change them. Perhaps he could impact his immediate life and destroy Zagnafane. His greatest disappointment. Maybe he could remove himself from the wrongness around him. Zagnafane says he'd enjoy it too, while he's thinking the exact same thoughts. He's like, well, I'd love to also do a sparring session with you so I can murder it.
He stopped just short of saying that, but yeah.
So they set a date to meet again in a week, and they both walk away, realizing that the other Drow's time in Menzo Berenzin is surely limited.
Yeah, it's out at the flagpole at 3:00.
Right, high noon. I mean, how crazy is this? Again, I'm pretty sure it's the first time we've heard Drizzt think about killing Zagnafane. Mm-hmm. But in this moment, he mirrors his father's reactions, thought for thought, as we've seen Zach ponder over killing Drizzt numerous times. Who will strike first? If it comes down to a battle of will, would the rage to end the life of the other Drow overcome the willingness to let the other Drow cut them down in battle and end their own struggle? Drizzt hasn't mentioned the thought of allowing himself to die, but the way that the thought process seems to go, it seems that they both see death as the only way out of Menzo Berenzin at this moment. Mm. And both of them see death as more merciful than life in the Underdark. Such an amazing, just psychological roller coaster we ride with both of these.
I'm very convinced that there's some kind of blood relation there.
Yes, just maybe a little bit beyond Uncle Zach.
I mean, us as the readers know it, but Drizzt still doesn't know it, does he? It's still Uncle Zach.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. My dim light this week is this two-faced nature that we seem to see of Lolth's favor. In this chapter, Matron Malice hears the surface raid report from Denon and is convinced that House Do'Urden remains in Lulth's favor. Meanwhile, over at House Hannett, we find out that Matron Sinefé was in direct contact with a handmaiden of Lulth, and she hears that House Do'Urden is indeed out of Lulth's favor.
But if they're in, how are they out?
Well, that's the question. Well, I think there's just I'll get to it. So I love this because it's just creating this situation where the two houses are each thinking that they have the advantage over the other one. So with both houses having this mentality, who's going to strike out first? Very similar to Drizzt and Zaknafein, just like,
oh wow,
who's gonna strike out first? You know,
very
it's
macro,
like,
micro kind of, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so cool. There's just a lot going on. So I don't know, my brain is just like, could you imagine if they both struck at the same time? And it's like, what do you mean House Do'Urden is empty? You know, like all of House Hannett is in House Do'Urden. All of House Do'Urden is in House Hannett.
And here's the fun part, because House Hannett knows they want House Do'Urden. House Do'Urden doesn't know it's House Hannett yet. So they like,
no,
basically,
I thought they did.
I don't think so. Because otherwise they would have attacked Massage for sure, right? They wouldn't let him anywhere near it. But anywho, play this out in your head, right? Here comes House Do'Urden. They're like, we've got the spider favor of Spider Queen. Let's go march. And they go marching out, and they go through the Mushroom Grove, hut, 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 hut. And then, you know, marching the other way, doing their own go-to attack is, there goes House Hannett, and they pass each other in the Mushroom Grove. You know what I mean? But the nature of the Drow is they don't see each other. Like,
right. But no, I guess you're right. They what was it? They sent Vierna to talk to the faceless one.
Yep, because they wanted.
Yeah.
Yes, they wanted to continue to use him as their.
That's right.
Double agent, essentially.
Right. So yeah, they do not suspect House Hannett. I forgot about that.
No, but now the Security Council does know, because that was when we watched Matron Sinefé come out and basically say, "Hey, look, let us destroy House Do'Urden." So everybody essentially, but House Do'Urden knows.
Yeah. Right. Another reason that I really enjoyed this part of the chapter was that it cleared up some questions that I've been having throughout this whole book so far. A number of times I've been wondering for a while now how the Drow know whether or not they are in Lulth's favor. In this chapter, Malice seems to assume that House Do'Urden is all good, but we all know what happens when you assume.
You are sometimes wrong.
And then we find out that Sinefé hears directly from a handmaiden of Lulth that House Do'Urden screwed up. Not sure how, but they did. So, is that how we know for sure if a house is in Lulth's favor? And if so, why wouldn't Malice also check in with the Yochlals?
Don't you remember how that went for Malice the last time she checked in with the Yochlal?
That wasn't Malice.
Wasn't it? Are you
no,
sure?
that was Alton. That was Alton and Massage.
Right.
Yeah. Because, that was, well, and
they're
maybe
terrifying. That's the short answer to my answers. They're terrifying, and I wouldn't contact them unless I had to.
Well, and maybe that's why. Maybe that's why she doesn't do it, because it's like, hey, I shouldn't interrupt, you know? Like, and then it's
I
like,
feel like it's got something to do with, like, if you ask an obvious question, it kind of irritates them, like, you should know kind of deal. And, like, the last thing you really want to do is, like, draw the eye of the Spider Queen on you if you haven't done anything.
So, let me propose this. Lulth's favor is like a credit score.
Okay, I'm interested.
When you look at your credit score goes down.
Oh, yes.
So when you check on whether or not you are in the favor of Lulth, your favor goes down.
Right. Like, why are you bothering me? Hey, we good? Are you serious? We good, right?
You were good.
It's fantastic.
It just popped in my head. So, I mean, and then there's just another question, just how did Sinefé get in contact? Or did the Yochlal contact Sinefé?
Well, and so I'm glad that you had put it that way as far as falling out of Lolth's favor, because when we do our dungeon delve here in a moment, I'm going to try to dive into that just a little bit. But it is really an interesting idea. How would you know?
Right.
Because, and I'm probably going to cross right into this in a moment anyway, so let's bleed this section just a little bit. But
no.
You get
Let's
your
go ahead.
powers from Lolth, right?
I think so.
All right, so let's go into the dungeon delve.
Let's go.
So the Dungeon Delve is the part of the show where we link this chapter with our favorite tabletop role-playing game, 5th edition, Dungeons & Dragons, as we've said earlier. So, what is my Dungeon Delve? As we mentioned, there's a little bit of a bleed through. It is, what happens when you lose your god's favor?
Just a little bit of bleed through.
Yeah, right? It's almost like it teed up perfectly at that spot.
Which it was not on purpose.
No, not at all. Like, I just finished this not too long ago. So, in this chapter, we see House Do'Urden lose the favor of Lolth, according to Matron Sinefe. We've seen Drow justice meted out in a failed raid, and we've seen a raid that was successful because the house had lost the favor of Lolth. But what does it mean if a cleric loses their favor of their god in a game? Now,
I mean, there's a number of different classes that follow some deity.
Yes.
Clerics, paladins.
I went with cleric just because
Warlocks.
thinking of like the hand priestesses of the handmaiden, not the handmaidens, the priestesses of Lolth, the high priestesses and stuff.
They're considered clerics in the book. I would almost consider them 5th edition warlocks almost, but maybe not.
You could be
But yeah, but clerics, yeah.
So I decided to go with cleric though because thinking that like trying to see the impact between when they were sitting in that room knowing they didn't have the favor of their god, House Devere was like, nah, we're screwed.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do they know?
Yeah.
So
that's the question.
I feel like I should admit that there's nothing specifically put into the rule book that I could see. So I'm going to take a few different ideas and blend them together sort of as a homebrew.
Cool.
The cleric is given their power by their god. Their service and faith acts almost like a type of conduit, and the god's favor will act to empower the cleric. So I'm using some very general terms because it's hard to break down exactly how it works. But when you're a cleric, your ability to cast certain spells and use certain things is tied directly to your deity. So if you have the god of knowledge, he grants you the ability to use magic in his name or his stead, something like that. Not all of your magic, but a lot of it.
Right.
So if this were happening to a paladin, what would happen is the paladin would become an oathbreaker paladin. This is interesting because it's summarized as whatever light there was inside of the paladin's eyes was now extinguished and only darkness remained. Wicked.
Yeah.
The rulebook has set up this subclass so that you get certain spells at different levels, such as Hellish Rebuke, Animate Dead, Blight, Contagion, Dominate Person, and more.
Yeah. Those are not
normal paladins.
Normal paladin spells. Those are like necromancy spells almost.
It gets even freakier, right? Because then channel divinity options will allow you to control undead. And dreadful aspect. I don't want to get too deep into the paladin because we're looking at the cleric. I just wanted to point out that if a paladin loses their oath, it changes who they are fundamentally.
Right.
So, whoop, jeepers, I totally missed my spot there. So, as a cleric losing the faith of your god, I believe the first step is finding a new one or going on a quest to regain the favor of your previous one.
Oh, interesting.
So having the god forsake a player cannot be a simple mistake. It should be something that a player is warned of ahead of time. A good example would be that your god is the god of knowledge, as I said earlier, okay? And you've decided you want to set fire to a library. Maybe like the one from Alexandria.
I feel like the god of knowledge would have issue with that.
Maybe, because it's quite an important library. It's got a lot of knowledge in it, and it's, by the way, full of people.
Right.
So the DM should give you a warning of some sort that you're about to commit an atrocity that will have major repercussions. If the player decides to go through with it, maybe they rationalize that some of these stories have naked pictures in them, and you decided that they must be punished. When the player commits this act and the god disowns them, then they lose the ability to use spells powered by the god's favor, as well as channel divinity.
Ooh.
In Critical Role, they let the cleric know, in Critical Role, the show, they let the cleric know that they'd lost their favor to the god by having heard Symbol of Divinity crack. So it actually broke. You should find a way to let your player know without a shadow of a doubt that their god is displeased. Now, if a new god has been chosen for the cleric, then they would have had to approve of the actions that caused your previous falling out. But that is perfectly possible for that to happen. So perhaps, maybe Kelimvor would look upon your actions at the library with favor, seeing as how they're the god of dead. Or maybe Jurgle, that's the scribe of the dead. Either of those choices would leave the character with a perfectly good reasoning for abandoning their previous god. However, if you weren't trying to earn praise of a new god, then you're going to have to go to a temple and find somebody who can speak to or for their deity so that they can find out what must be done in order to earn their favor back. A great example that I found of this was that maybe the god of knowledge is your god, like we mentioned, and they want you to put together a library that equals what was destroyed. So some books, most of them would be able to be purchased. You'd have to set a gold price for it. And then some of them, though, would be rare and they'd be harder to obtain. So you'd have to go on quests to find those books.
Okay.
They might also
undoing the wrong that you've done.
Yep, but you'd have to go maybe a step further than just righting the wrongs because you've gone so far the other way. So not just replacing the books, not just making the library.
Right.
Now maybe you got to go to each family member of the person that you've slaughtered, each of their families, and then atone forgiveness in some form or another. And then that way, after you've completed those tasks, maybe your god would look upon you with favor again. I don't know. These are just a few of the ways that the deity can play a role in your campaign. If you have any interesting stories about your encounters with deities, please come on into the Discord. Share it with the Dim Light Squad. Who's your favorite deity? Who's giving you the most problems during a campaign? Stuff like that. Anything that makes you chuckle or the things that really made you just want to flip a table and walk out. Share them with the group. Let us find out exactly what you guys go through. I love to hear, what players experience. I think I've told you before, I'm getting ready to start a D&D campaign as a DM to try to get my feet wet. And I'm hoping to be able to bring in fun stories about that, where it's just like, oh, you guys cannot believe how crazy this just went. So I love when other people share that with us.
That's awesome. Yeah. And don't forget, you can get the invitation to the Discord in the
episode description. You can get the Discord invitation link, guys. Yeah.
Man, my brain is just not working.
Soon I'm going to put in another link so that we have people who are going to be able to come into the Discord and they can put their names in to the hat to see if they want to come on in and join the D&D campaign that we'll put together for this show here as well. Want to do something after the end of season 1. We've talked about it, doing the Grand Melee campaign. Guys, come on in the Discord. I will create this room soon so that you can start putting your name into the hat. Maybe we get a couple of combatants and we can run this out together.
I'll definitely be putting my name in that hat.
Excellent. But you can't win the prize because you were a member of the show.
Man, come on. All right. My dungeon delve this week is, in this chapter, we saw the effects of Drizzt going through a traumatic experience, right?
Yes.
We talked about it back up in the Drizzt. So we had memories seeming to take physical form around him, replaying the horrible scenes from the surface raid. This scene got me thinking about how a player's character might be affected by a traumatic experience. And madness, the effect of madness, came to mind. Madness is an effect. It's in the Dungeon Master Guide on page 258 if you want to take a look. It's a mechanic that can reinforce a horror theme if you're a DM and you're trying to maintain that type of environment. You can inflict your player characters with madness. But it could also be the result of a PC going through like a physical stress, just like overexerting themselves. Like trekking through a desert and becoming severely hydrated. You start to see things or whatever. So the madness mechanic comes in 3 flavors. We have short-term, long-term, or indefinite for you really nasty DMs out there. And I'm just going to take a brief look into what each one sort of looks like. So short term, which is described as 1d10 minutes of being affected by madness. So up to 10 minutes, basically. it has a roll table, which you roll a 100-sided die or 2d10s and, treat it like 100.
Just
and
real quick, when you say 10 minutes, is that in turn action 10 minutes? Because that's
10 minutes
or game time.
In game time.
Okay, because I was like, if you were in a combat and suffering from madness, holy goodness, you're talking
that's
600
the whole combat.
actions?
That's the whole combat, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think. So, yeah, if you get affected by madness, short term, long term, whatever, within combat, you're... Yeah, it could really hurt.
Yeah, because every
what gets
single
rolled.
minute is going to be six
turns,
six
right?
turns, yeah.
10 turns?
So
10 turns. 10 turns.
Well, no, because you're right. I'm sorry. I'm doing the math backwards.
Yeah.
So 10
me
turns.
too.
So you'd have the ability to lose 100. Well, not lose, but to be impacted for 100 turns. That's a lot.
Yeah. So I think there's like 10 different effects on the short term. There might be more. I forget. But I just chose like 3 here. So one is your character retreats in his or her mind and becomes paralyzed. So you just like freeze. If that happens during combat, good luck. Another one is the character becomes incapacitated and spends the duration screaming, laughing, or weeping, which is just like...
Was that Tasha's hideous laughter?
Oh, very similar to that. Yeah. But if you're like, imagine like as a DM, you're trying to set a horror type theme and you have them going through this like dark dungeon, or they're in the Underdark or something, or in a haunted mansion, and they just like start like just like crying, and you hear that reverberating off the walls, and it could just be really creepy, or laughing.
Well, no, I'm sure that hearing a drow cry is probably it's terrifying. It's got to be terrifying.
Oh, I'm sure. And then one of these options on the roll table sounds a little familiar. The character experiences vivid hallucinations, and then as a result has disadvantage on all ability checks.
I don't remember that happening to Massage at all.
Well, you don't remember interacting with the Yachlal and all the walls coming to life? But no, like that's what got me thinking of this madness effect when Drizzt was walking through the halls and thinking about all, like just reminiscing all those memories just seeming to come to life. And exactly. And so I was just like, oh no, this is totally madness. He's totally afflicted by this. So that was short term. Long term is described as lasting 1d10 times 10 hours. So that could be up to 100 hours. So we're talking a few days here.
Yeah.
Like at most, but then like as little as 10 hours. There are some commonalities on the roll table between short term and long term, such as the hallucinations. So you could be stuck hallucinating for 10 days or 100 hours rather. But then there's a few other ones that are really interesting. And the one I probably love the most is you choose a potion. I would assume the DM chooses a potion.
Right,
and
right.
The character thinks that they are under the effects of that potion.
Oh, wow.
So for instance, like water breathing.
Oh, does that mean they're going to go drown themselves?
Like jump in water and they're like, no, I can breathe or something like that.
Yeah.
Or what, invisibility. Like an invisibility potion.
So they're all prancing around naked as the emperor has clothes. Yeah.
And there's like, they can't see me. It's just like everyone sees them. There's an option where the character suffers from partial amnesia. The character loses the ability to speak. And then again, there's more. Very interesting. And then for the really nasty DMs, there's
who you are.
indefinite madness. So these effects last until they are cured in some way. So there's a couple spells that can be used to cure madness. And I'll talk about indefinite madness in just a second, but Calm Emotions is a spell that can help suppress some madness features. Lesser Restoration cures short-term and long-term madness, but it can't cure indefinite. In order to cure indefinite, you need to be the target of a greater restoration spell. That's the only way of curing that. So Otherwise, you are stuck with it. And then the Indefinite Madness has a roll table that's basically filled with a bunch of personality traits they're basically personality traits that the character just inherits. So some include being drunk keeps me sane. So they're constantly drinking, constantly drunk. That's gonna, I didn't take a look, but
that is gonna be rough.
I assume that being drunk would cause some disadvantages on ability checks. I would think.
Yeah, I can't remember, but I was literally just listening to a D&D podcast that was explaining the downside of that. Like, after you have a few drinks, then the DM will start to get into their mind of like, oh, are you drunk now? Let me roll and find out. And if you're drunk, then you start to get hit with different levels. Yeah, it is something.
Yeah, I would think it would be almost like exhaustion. Like, there's different levels of drunkenness.
Yeah.
And for each one, it's like it just tacks on something else. It's like, hey, you're slower now. Or, hey, you have disadvantage on dexterity abilities. Or
congratulations, you've had several cups of ale. You're now married to the orc.
Your charisma goes up briefly, but then after another drink, now it goes back down.
Now you're crying and listening to sad songs on the radio.
Another personality trait is I am the smartest, wisest, strongest, fastest, and most beautiful person I know.
Excellent. No, I see nothing wrong with that.
I thought that one was good.
Yuck is the first one that comes to mind when I see that. You know, you're just going to charge right on in there thinking that everything's great. R.I.P. Yuck.
Poor Yuck. And then the last one I wanted to highlight is I've discovered that I really enjoy killing people.
So Zach
is
just completely indefinite madness. He enjoys killing Drow.
You know what?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. No, that's where he's at.
I wonder what had happened. I hope we get his backstory at some point in time when we continue to go through the show. Because I would love to get to a moment and be, that is what hit him with indefinite madness.
That's the moment.
Right there.
Right there. Oh, that would be awesome. No, that's totally... I totally get that. Yeah, everyone, get on the Discord. Let us know what you think. But, yeah, you got me. You got me on your side with that one. So, I feel like Drizzt hasn't picked up indefinite madness here, seeing as there was no hallucination, at least in the 5e rules. I feel like he's under the effects of probably long-term and just rolled the hallucinations result. Even though the madness itself only lasts a few days, I feel like he isn't going to forget the surface raid anytime soon.
You think
really,
maybe,
if ever.
Maybe he'll hear the cries of the children late at night while he's staring out over the balcony, wondering if Drizzt is... Oh, wait, no, Drizzt. Never mind. That was Zach. Sorry. You're right.
It'll be Drizzt. Drizzt will get there if he sticks around in Menzoberran's
right?
for
you just see shadows
any length
of
of time. He'll be right in Zach's shoes. Absolutely. If Zach is
literally right in Zach's
smudged
shoes.
out of the
Once
picture.
Once they go to that training date, Drizzt's going to kill him. He's going to take his boots. He's going to wear them, sit at the little balcony on the side. Yeah, I can see it.
Yep. It's totally happening. So, anyway, that is my Dungeon Delve, and that is the end of this episode.
No!
So, thank you, everyone, for listening. Remember that if you like the show, hit that subscribe button, get those notifications, leave a comment, do what you do, and, leave us a rating. Also, make sure you're getting the most out of this podcast. Pick up a copy of the book and read along with us. And, hey, if you don't have time to read, get that audiobook. Listen during your commute. Listen while you're at work if you're able to. While you're at the gym sparring your, worst enemy or best friend, whatever. When you've read or listened to the next chapter, shoot us an email at drizzdoneright@gmail.com, or, again, log on to that Discord. The invitation is in the description. Remember, we would love to hear from you.
You can hear the swans singing their song. I know the end is nigh, but I'm not ready to give in and end the episode just yet. This show is continuing to grow at a great rate, and just want to encourage you all to continue sharing it with your friends, your family.
Totally.
We totally both appreciate you guys helping us reach 21 different countries.
Crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It makes us just want to keep going and growing. And if you guys want to contribute, we do have a link. It is in the episode description. It says support this podcast. It gives you the ability to donate whatever you can afford, and it helps us grow even quicker. You are all amazing, and I'm just blown away by it all. Before I just continue to gush and go on effusively, let me just wrap it up and say farewell. Till the next time you click the button and start the show, play fair, be well.